Let's keep rolling. Line number 3. Jeremy, you're on the air.
Good morning to you, sir.
Morning to you.
Sorry, I'm not a very good public speaker. Good morning. The reason I'm calling you this morning, and I give you guys a little synopsis, I'm wanting to call about the conduct of the Crown and the provincial government this morning, and their access around the world's energy to GH2's $128 million donation, or corporate welfare, I would call, and the shenanigans involving the courts in Newfoundland.
Okay, what exactly is happening?
So basically, I am deemed the sister case to the Friends of Halibu case, which you may have had other people on here talking about. And so I have a land rights claim against the Crown where the windmills will be taking place in our land. And so the provincial government's named on it, the federal government's named on it, and the Federation of Newfoundland Indians. Meanwhile, these people are going about announcing this wind energy project will move forward despite the claims against them. They have bribed the Chief Missile Joe, obviously with a position here, and it looks like they're getting to the interim chief now because yesterday Judy Hutchins on her Twitter announced the $128 million for them, but they can't reconcile with the ongoing grievances with the Mi'kmaq and the disenfranchise of the Mi'kmaq. So it's quite a couple topics. And meanwhile, when we try to bring issues to their court, our paperwork sent back to us and told it's in the improper form, despite 1,400 pages of litigation saying otherwise.
So the basics are they're refusing to hear your claim action, period?
Well, yeah, so I was at the federal court for 4 years of Ottawa. They said the jurisdiction belonged to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland here in September. So since September, I've been trying to reach out to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland. They have denied communication. They have blocked communication, blocked emails. I have hired people in St. John's to deliver the paperwork. And then the very same day, without even checking it, they send it back to me saying there wasn't a printed signature on it. There was clearly a printed signature on the paper when I received it that I signed. This is just some of the shenanigans. So they're playing games in court. They're picking what cases they can hear. Obviously, there's a lot of oppression being done onto the Mi'kmaq as a whole. It's already been ruled that the FNI has done it, but I'm saying the Crown is doing it too. Now, those are some pretty bold statements, but these are the shenanigans going on. And meanwhile, they're buying out our supposed leaders with this windmill project.
Yeah. So, I mean, the issue for you is very specific to a land claim as opposed to simply a baked-in opposition to wind turbines. Am I hearing this properly?
Well, I'm opposed to wind turbines in our land as well. So some people, like I said, they haven't negotiated properly. I believe they haven't did the environmental impact surveys properly. I am in Ontario, but I frequent my area very much so, and I have plans to move back here as shortly as possible. For being an advocate and a litigant, I've actually been targeted with persecution. I've had false allegations made criminally against me, dropped. I've had family members harassed, attacked, so on and so forth. So the Crown has done a lot of shenanigans. I'm just trying to make them to light today. I'm not the best public speaker, Patty. I apologize.
No, you don't have to. I just want to make sure that regardless of who calls, whether or not they're an orator of note or someone who thinks that they struggle speaking publicly, I just want to make sure that I understand what we're talking about so that I can help further the conversation. So you don't have to worry about what you're presenting.
Okay, no problem. And I think that the track that had the Crown. The track that the Crown has done in regards to the Mi'kmaq population over the last 20 years says leaps and bounds. And now it looks like they're buying out our leaders, the remaining leaders, the interim chief of the Halibu. I won't mention her name because it's not fair to me to do it. And I can mention Missile Joe. It's actually on NTV that he's accepted the position already with the World Energy GH2, 6 weeks after resigning from administrative head of the Mi'kmaq First Nation. If that doesn't say bribery, I don't know what does.
Well, I don't know if he's been bribed or he simply has an interest that was made an offer and accepted. I mean, he's a big voice to have at the table. I would imagine they were very quick to offer him a seat.
and there's a lot of private meetings, seemingly, at Judy Hutchinson's resort or lodge that she has in Labrador with Mr. Fury and Mr. Missile Joe and G2H.
I thought the concern there was that Fury went to a Risley-owned lodge.
From what I understand, that Lundergan's name or Judy Hutchinson's name has been thrown into it. So there's a lot of what I would deem as political corruption and backroom deals going on. Now, that might be merely speculation from my end, but from on the outside looking in. And meanwhile, when I reach out to these government offices in Newfoundland to lay complaints about not having my paperwork processed with the Supreme Court of Newfoundland, it is openly blocked. That is seemingly what the gist of it is by the Crown, is just to block communication, set up roadblocks as much as possible so that we never get to have our day in court, to say the least. Now, I'm without a lawyer, per se, as speaking in court, but I've had a lawyer help prepare the 1,400 pages of documents, and they don't understand why the court and the Crown is refusing to have this service.
Yeah, and I don't know. Without knowing all of the different moving parts and the ins and the outs, I really don't know what to say to your concern. The issue regarding Fury's visit to a Fisher Lodge in Labrador, I think that optically it was a problem. Realistically, I don't think it was going to mean a row of beans. He was either going to apply for this proposal or he wasn't. I don't think John Risley is necessarily someone who needs to get cold comfort from one individual at any level of government. I mean, he's been running roughshod and running hard in the business world for a long, long time. He's got the skin like a rhino, so I don't know if that was of any influence here. And, of course, there's still a lot to be left to be understood about his proposal, period. Like I mentioned off the top of the show, definition of green and the integration with the public electrical grid.
So I'm going to quote this from Mi'kmaq Matters, which they posted 14 hours ago. Here's some news from What a Small World department. Today, MP Judy Hutchins announced $128 million in funding to World GH2, which I just announced. Principal is billionaire John Risley. Risley bought the luxurious Rifflin Hitch Lodge from Hutchins, who's daughter of the Lundergan clan. It was Rifflin Hitch Lodge that Premier of Newfoundland Andrew Fury and his dad, former Senator George Fury, met with Risley on a posh fishing trip in July 2021, before the province lifted the moratorium on wind energy. Andrew's pal, Brandon Paddock, went straight from advising the Premier to being director of Risley's WGH2. Andrew's dad, George, is an advisor to Vortex Energy, which is a hatchling plant to store hydrogen in salt caverns under Robinson's River, a salmon river in southwestern Newfoundland. Today's announcement comes 2 days after GH2 hired former Chief Missile Joe, who was part of the Mi'kmaq Coalition, to whom Risley unloaded the Clearwater Seafood Company. Missile Joe has been an overnight guest at the home of Premier in St. John's. And that's from Mi'kmaq Matters. Now, I don't speak for Mi'kmaq Matters. I just quote it, what they had posted.
And that's fair. If there was only one game in town, then I think everyone would be rightfully saying something stinks in Denmark. But the fact of the matter is there was 9 applications for these proposals. And so whether Mr. Risley was advocating on behalf of 9 different proponents from different parts of the world, then I think that, maybe some of this is not quite as egregious as some people may suggest it is, because if Risley was the only application and the only game and the only possibility, whether it be in just Port or if he had applications in multiple areas, then I think we would all be absolutely outraged as to how this all unfolded. Yeah. But we'll see. I'll give you the final thought, Chairman, because I'm almost up against the 11:30 news.
All right, yeah, no problem. I do thank you for your time. My final thought would be that they haven't consulted, at least with me, or the people, some of the people that have land and rights claims against the Crown and the province. Originally, the KMA group, as I wrote to you guys, I was a part of, and they had land claims, and the Crown, your Supreme Court of Newfoundland, would not they would not certify the class back in 2008. That's because they were worried about singular claims. Now, I'm back here in 2023 with a singular claim, and they won't even allow me to give a court file number. And so I do thank you for your time. I just wanted to bring this to air about the shenanigans going on around the G2H. There's widely in opposition, And I even looked at your guys' poll today. So far right now, 61% say no, they do not support World Energy G2H. So it's a highly, I don't know what the word would be, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's always going to be some opposition, if not a ton. But again, I think that if we look across the rest of the province and the five proposals, because Pattern Energy wasn't going to use Crown land, so they're proceeding with the second phase of their plans at the Port of Argentia. But you don't necessarily hear the same sort of pushback and the level of and the tone and tenor pushback against the Exploits Valley or down the Burin Peninsula or at Come By Chance or at the Port of Argentia like you do with Risley. Risley's a firebrand. You know, he's got a reputation. He's been involved in business dealings in this province in the past, whether or not simply because he's a billionaire and or his past business dealings and or his reputation. It gets so much different energy and reaction than the other proponents that I think his name, in large part, drives that type of reaction. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's a big part of it, because just look at the opposition in other parts of the province. There is some, of course there is. Is it at the same level as on the Port Peninsula? Absolutely not. Well, certainly not on this show. It might be in the communities where the proponents are having these discussions. But Jeremy, I am late for the news, but I appreciate your time this morning. Stay in touch.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.